Well, good day, everyone. Welcome to Friday 15. My name is Brian Beck. I'm here with Andy Hoare, and we are here to talk about some great stuff today on our Master B2B weekly Friday 15 session. We're rocking out today, Andy. Welcome to Friday.
Yeah, it's good to be Friday, and it's good to have a conversation, and this is a good one.
It is a lot of talk. This is a hot issue. We're going to talk about channel conflict today, but before we do, let's talk about some breaking news. eMarketer, Andy, I don't know if you saw this week. Voice shopping is not a major commerce channel now, but Gen AI and Gen Z could change that. What eMarketer found, they published it this week. They found that some information, recent studies that showed that the use of voice assistants and voice-related commerce amongst Gen Z, which is our youngest generation, just coming into the workforce, is growing at about 3 times the rate as it is amongst other cohorts. So this is not something that should be ignored by B2B or really by any sector of commerce. Voice commerce, while it's been sort of played a second fiddle to many other types of commerce, people kind of ignoring it. It needs to be paid attention to, because this will emerge as these Gen Z folks become more part of the B2B buying cohort. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, to me, one of the best use cases is in B2B, somebody who's out in the field,
Right.
an installer or whatever, and they don't have access to a screen and they need a part. And if they could just talk to, an AI bot and say, look, I need this number, blah, blah, blah. Great, it's on its way, or you can pick it up in 2 hours here. That's just so convenient. I mean, you've seen these guys like plumbers and stuff. They can't really hold the phone while they're doing their job. So if they can just hit speakerphone and reorder something, it's a huge deal. So yeah, it is. The thing is, voice recognition has gotten so good now that this is a viable option.
Yeah, and we've in some of our past debates and other things, we've even played some of the the voice recognition, and it's pretty amazing. There's still, we find, lag time and things like that in the responses, but there's been some incredible advances with AI as it relates to voice recognition, voice response. So yeah, this is coming, folks. So just something to pay attention to. This caught our eye this week. So our topic, Andy, this week is one of the biggest we've heard constantly ever since we started this thought leadership series. Is channel conflict a good reason not to sell directly via e-commerce? A very hot topic. And what? Let's start by defining what channel conflict actually is. Well, this is the again, one of the other authorities other than ChatGPT of all things. I'm going to cite Wikipedia here, Andy. Channel, the way they define it, what's defined on the site: channel conflict occurs when manufacturers or brands disintermediate their channel partners, such as distributors, dealers, retailers, sales reps, by selling products directly to buyers through general marketing methods and or over the internet. This is a classic challenge. The opportunity exists for, particularly for manufacturers, but frankly also for distributors, to sell, create their own private label products in the case of distributors, or in manufacturers' case, to go direct on e-commerce to the buyer that traditionally their dealer or distributor has been serving. And this is an issue that has caused consternation, because e-commerce provides a dramatic opportunity for many companies, but it affects everything, really everything from direct e-commerce, but also really even Amazon. So I'm sharing some statistics here. So my company Insiba, that works with B2B product manufacturers on Amazon, we do a poll, Andy, every year. It's our Pulse survey. In fact, we're going through it right now for 2025. We ask questions like, hey, if you're not selling on Amazon, why aren't you? Well, a full third, 34%, said we don't want to cause conflict with our other sales channels. A top reason why they're not selling on Amazon: they don't want to cause channel conflict. The same thing holds true, of other channels. And in fact, we got a comment on this when we posted this on LinkedIn, Andy. Joe Kovacs, co-founder of BrandGuard, which does brand work for companies on Amazon, he said, we see most sources of channel conflict coming from uncontrolled e-com channels like Amazon, and unauthorized sellers undercutting price and such on Amazon. So he sees how this can happen, and I see it too in our work with Insiba, where an uncontrolled channel can cause conflict. A lot of it's due to price. Companies will get products, they'll list them on Amazon, drop the price. It's the only way they can earn the sale. But this carries over to direct e-commerce. Andy, one of our companies that we've done work with, sponsored some of our events over the past year, Logic.io, they did a study this year, and they found that conflict fear prevents direct selling on e-commerce as well. Nearly 8 in 10 B2B websites that they surveyed, and there were hundreds of them, did not enable buyers to complete transactions online. That's 80%. That's one of the highest numbers I've seen around this, but I've seen numbers anywhere from 50 to 80%. Companies not selling online directly, B2B. My goodness, we've got a situation here where companies are not taking advantage of the opportunity, and due to channel conflict. What are your thoughts?
Well, this classic. This is not a new issue, but to me, the trap here is that people extrapolate from the present to the future instead of thinking from the future back to the present. Now, that sounds like some sort of theoretical construct, but most companies I've worked with in the last 10 years, they start with where they are today and they go, okay, this is where we want to be in 5 years. What they always leave out of that equation is, what are customers doing? And
Right.
and what is it that customers want, and what's their behavior look like? And the one problem with all this stuff about not selling direct is that there are actually definitely customers who want to buy direct from brand
Yes.
manufacturers, period. End of story. That's just not in question anymore. I've done a lot of research around this. You're
Yeah.
familiar with that research. There are a distinct group of customers that want to buy direct from you. And by the way, not only that, but they actually want to pay for the privilege of doing so. They'll pay a premium to do so. But all these brand manufacturers say, well, we don't want to disrupt our channel. I'm like, well, all of your distributors are doing private label.
Right.
So they're selling their own version of what you're doing. How is that not disrupting the channel? So there's this illusion or myth that the channel is perfect and undisrupted. And I've been reminding people of this as of you for years now.
Right.
Got news for you. It's already disrupted. So not that it's every man for himself, because you want to have, a channel partnership, but there is that, famous term, co-opetition. There is something to be said for, you need to find your place. Everybody needs to serve the customers in the best way possible, because the customers are going to find it. They're going to do it on their own. And if you don't participate, if you don't sell direct to them, somebody else will.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because I've been in this business a long time, and I started in e-commerce in the late 1990s. Okay. So I'm dating myself here, but I was on the consumer side. In the first almost 20 years of my career, I was on the consumer side of e-commerce. If a brand, by the time, 10 years into that career, I was working for retailers. And I'll give for example, PacSun, right, which is a clothing retailer. I ran their e-commerce business for a little while. And, if a brand that we sold did not have their own direct e-commerce, something was wrong with them. We didn't feel like they were doing what they needed to do to establish the brand in the marketplace, because they wouldn't have the right kind of digital content for us. They weren't, present, controlling their presence on Amazon. They weren't doing the things they needed to do to build their overall presence. Rising tide floats all boats, right? I mean, if you're out there and you're controlling your overall presence in the marketplace and selling direct, as long as you have a mindful or a thoughtful channel strategy as a branded manufacturer, then this isn't a cannibalization issue. It's something that is expected or should be expected. I think B2B is going to get there. It's just taking a freaking long time.
Yeah, because there's still this perception that manufacturers make and distributors sell and service.
Exactly. Right.
And
Yeah.
in general, that's correct. But we just gave examples of where, if private label, a distributor is making, and if customers go to a brand manufacturer's website and want to buy from them, and the brand manufacturer sells to the customer because, I don't know, the customer wants to buy it from them and is willing to pay a premium for it, how is that not a brand manufacturer selling and servicing to some extent? So again, it's not as clean and cut as it's always been. Your point is valid. This happened early on in B2C. Remember back in the day when the Procter and Gambles of the world were threatening the Walmarts of the world by saying, if you ever sell direct, we're going to yank all of our Tide and Huggies and all that stuff off the shelves. Well, last time I went to Walmart, they still had all that stuff on the shelves. So, and Walmart has its own private label products. So we just all lie to each other and pretend the reality isn't what it is. And as you show on the screen here, this has actually happened in B2B too.
It totally has. Today's value chain is so much more complex, Andy. To your point about, it was, hey, the maker makes, the taker takes, and resells to the end user, right, and the distributor. But today, the value chain is much more complex. You got branded manufacturers that are selling themselves. They're selling to pure play e-commerce. They're selling to Amazon and marketplaces, also to multi-channel distribution. You've got, the distributor now making private label product. You got distributors buying their suppliers. You see this happening all the time. So they're vertically integrating. So they realize that there's better margin, for example, in private label product. What does this all mean? In my book, I talked about this when we published it a few years ago. I think this is all what I call the age of transparency, right? You think about this on the consumer side, the consumer or the B2B buyer now has more power than they've ever had. And that's actually a good thing in a lot of ways. I mean, it just opens up. If you're a manufacturer, differentiates on product, you just have to recognize this is all happening and take action on it, and not sit on your butt, and have have a direct selling channel, embrace marketplaces, sell directly on Amazon, work with your distributors who are progressive in e-commerce, not to the extent of ignoring the traditional channel. If you look at the leaders in their categories and consumer products, companies like Apple or Nike, what are they doing? They've embraced all of this. They have huge direct selling channels, and you got, retailers clamoring over themselves to sell their products. Not every company can sell Nike. I remember this at PacSun, back in 15 years ago.
Nike actually went too far in the other direction.
Oh, arguably.
They basically wrote off the channel during the pandemic and said, we're just going to sell all of our stuff direct. That was a mistake. So you can go too far in either direction. But
yes, I would agree with that.
The most important thing is you got to acknowledge the reality here. What changed all of this was the fact that the internet made it possible for buyers to interact directly with manufacturers. That's it. Before, you had to go through a distributor. Before, you had to go through a retailer. How did you buy as a consumer a Samsung television direct from Samsung 20 years ago? It was impossible. But now you can go to their website and you'll type in the word Samsung, you'll go there. The same thing in B2B. And I think there's still this perception that doesn't exist, that, oh no, the buyers all understand the way it's supposed to operate. We make this stuff and they sell in certain, it's like, well, then shut down the internet, because when somebody types in the brand name for something like a 3M respirator, where do they expect to go other than 3M?
Right. 75% of buyers are now millennials or Gen Z, guys. Listen, it's a different buyer that's changed. So I love what Tim Peterson, he contributed in our LinkedIn discussion, president of Spear Digital, what he said. He said distributor first or distributor only methods of selling are less preferred by buyers year over year. So in other words, things have changed. There may be some great value added services out there from resellers, but on balance, even folks who aren't digital natives show in surveys and focus groups that they prefer to have less intermediation and would rather tap into an app or click on a site than deal with layers of people, et cetera. So what Tim's saying is the same thing we're saying here, is that, get out of the way, of the buyer. I work with some manufacturers over the last few years, Andy, and that have been very, very successful in growing their business. And their attitude has been, hey, we want to be wherever the buyer is in the best way we can be. We're going to not ignore channel dynamics. We're going to have a map policy. We're going to have other things, but we're going to be in front of the buyer the best way we can, because manufacturers get caught up on the fact that, hey, it's only about price, right? This is just about price competition, or distributors do. It's not necessarily about that. There are powerful incentives for a manufacturer to sell direct, right? They have more margin, for example. They could theoretically undercut price of their distributors because they have more margin to work with. They make the product. There's no, 2 or 3 steps in the way. But the thing is, it's not just about price. In fact, when you look at the data, it's about other things. The top reasons customers are shifting buying online is not just about price. The top 2 reasons are that it's more convenient to sell online. It's faster. Almost over 50% in this survey by Forrester a couple of years ago said it's not about price, it's about these other things. And people get caught up on the price thing. You can manage the price thing, but why do you think all these marketplaces and Amazon Business are coming in and taking all this share in these categories? It's because they're doing these first 2 things well: faster, easier, right?
It is about those things. And the reason it's less about price than it is in B2C is because you're spending somebody else's money. That's
Right.
number one. And number two, there's a lot less price sensitivity because you have a mission to accomplish here. It's not like I'm buying a t-shirt for myself and I want to save $1 on it. It's
Right.
because, if I have to pay an extra 3 cents on a widget, but I can get it today and it makes, enables me to earn more revenue today. $1
Right.
today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. These are considerations for B2B companies because it's a business. So yeah, there isn't as much fixation on price in B2B. And again, that's another mind shift thing. So you're absolutely right about that.
Absolutely. So the question is, can or how do brands sell direct and avoid conflict? And there's a number of things that I've seen, Andy, and get your opinion on some of these. But that where companies can launch and have a deliberate channel strategy while not ignoring what the customer is needing or looking for. So number one is having a sort of a minimum advertised price or sales channel agreements with your sales channel honored by everyone, including the brand itself.
And
B2B offers
Amazon,
and Amazon. Well, yeah, but there's ways to sell. That's a
which
great
means it's
point.
got to be 3P, not 1P, right?
That's exactly right. If you want well, you could still have a 1P program if you're doing that well, because then the rest of the market is selling at a reasonable price. But so yes, that does have significant implications. But things like pricing too. I mean, when we think about price, taking it out of the equation, we're in B2B, we have logins, and that's after you log in, that's where you see your customer specific pricing inside of custom catalogs, things like that. So be mindful of how your pricing is displayed in the market. You can vary your assortment by channel so that you're perhaps selling things on your own site that maybe you're making product for a distributor that's unique to that distributor. Being mindful of who's selling the product. So in other words, how and where are you selling the product, and it's getting into the hands of folks who you may not want representing your brand. Taking control of marketplace channels, to your point, with
Yeah, that's
Amazon.
an interesting point, though. Not worth, that's worth reinforcing. There has to be an enforcement mechanism in place. You can't just put a map pricing strategy out there or talk about how, people who divert inventory will be punished and not punish people. I've always said, take a demonstration event, take one person and demonstrate, with punishment. That's all you have to do. Set an example. But if you don't have an enforcement program, I'm sorry, people are going to violate everywhere.
100%. There's lots of companies I come across, particularly in my Amazon work, that may have a map policy. It's not enforced. No one cares. You might as well. It's not worth the paper it's written on. Don't even
Right.
bother. So enforcement takes internal alignment. There's a bunch of we could do a whole Friday 15 just on that piece. But at the end of the day, this stuff also provides a branded manufacturer the ability to better support channel when you have good digital assets to distribute and syndicate, analytics about what's happening on your own website, what people are searching for. You can actually empower your channel. So these things work together. And again, to the point of not cannibalizing, but raising the bar for for that. And Ryan Weller, thanks for your comment. He said terms and conditions usually have more teeth than map. And I would agree with that, actually. Ryan, thanks for that comment.
Yeah, because it's a contract, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And who's selling it, right? There's all kinds of tricks of the trade behind that. In fact, Ryan, we pulled a comment from you from LinkedIn, so thanks for contributing live here. Ryan is the senior manager of e-commerce marketplaces at Adidas, and also does his brand management stuff, professionally. He said brands need to set guardrails on how they are going to prevent managed conflict. It's likely that products that drive brand health awareness need to be managed differently. And that's kind of that assortment segregation argument, Andy, right? We're talking about. We also got a comment from Rick Wingender. And Rick, thank you. You comment all the time on our posts. We appreciate that. He's the director of integrated marketing at Mueller Sports Medicine. He said reducing contact points for customers is a losing strategy. Sometimes the distributor dealer is a better contact than the manufacturer. If you're a dealer, what the PC industry calls this, PC meaning computers, VARs years ago, then your path to success is by focusing on the value add. And there are plenty of things that manufacturers can't compete with dealers on, and they don't want to. But again, don't be focused only on price. So thank you, Rick, for that comment. I think it's insightful and goes
Yeah,
right
by
to
the
the
way, he's absolutely right. This seems like it levels the playing field and actually, in a way, empowers brand manufacturers over distributors. Not necessarily.
Right.
Distributors have distinct advantages. And he points out, I mean, the fact that they can offer multiple products, the fact that
Right.
they can services, the fact that they're local, the fact that
Right.
they have deep domain expertise across multiple, this is the stuff they should be focused on. Those are the value added services. But he's right. Too many of them for so long have just competing on price with other distributors. And they need to think it's not a competition with other distributors exclusively. It's actually a competition for the customer's attention, which has a
That's
lot less
exactly right.
sometimes to do in B2B with price and more to do with those things you mentioned earlier in the survey, which is speed and convenience.
Exactly. Yep. So we asked our audience, Andy, should concerns with channel conflict prevent B2B companies, particularly manufacturers, from selling directly to end buyers via e-commerce? 100% said no.
That's
Conflict.
never happened. And you
One.
said this wasn't a small
No, this is like
poll.
100
There were like
votes.
maybe 100 people who replied to this,
Yeah,
right?
it wasn't. It was a substantial number of people that voted. I thought I was shocked that it was 100%. I don't know if we're like living in a bubble here or wishful thinking land, but
Well, but
but
we talked about this beforehand. We've been doing these roundtables around the country, and we've asked people what are their priorities for 2025. And one of the options is channel conflict, and it consistently this year has been in the basement.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I've
right,
even pointed it out, like nobody seems to be focused on it or care about it. You and I both know that that's not true, but we think that people are in a middle phase. The first phase was panic. We've kind of passed through that phase. The second
yeah,
phase is kind of
yeah, yeah,
reconciliation with reality. And a lot of them are like, oh, I think there's probably some here, but I'm not quite worried about it because it seems to be taking care of itself. There'll be a third and a fourth phase, but the next phase is reality.
right.
And that reality is going to be, wait a minute, we are kind of competing with these guys and we have to get smart about it. But nobody's going back to the world of two-step distribution where we make, they sell. I don't see that happening
Right.
anywhere. And that might be the reason that people here aren't as concerned about it.
Yeah, maybe. So, well, I mean, this gives me some hope. We're going to move beyond this issue in a managed way. So we're over our Friday 15 by quite a bit here, Andy. So let's wrap up. Just a couple quick announcements. Number one, make sure you sign up for our forum. We're getting lots of comments, and we had someone post something about, hey, I'm looking for an e-commerce platform this week. And we had about 11 people weigh in saying, hey, this is my experience migrating from this one to that one, and here, look at this one and that one, and just lots of one-on-ones, follow-ups from that. So,
And I'll be talking with this person next week. So that person not
awesome.
only got all this practitioner peer-to-peer stuff, but also talking to some of these evaluated platforms for 12 years now.
Yeah, right, exactly. So this is the value of it. It's peer-to-peer interaction with us as well. So yeah, encourage you to sign up. There's no cost. It's practitioner only. Go to our website, masterb2b.com, and click on forum. And finally, I want to remind folks that all of our episodes here on Friday 15 are available on your favorite podcast service on our website, as well as Google, Apple, Spotify, and other places throughout the interweb. And so, Andy, great conversation today. And we're going to wrap up here because we're way beyond. But any final words for our listeners?
Well, I have to say it. Next week, we may have a new president. We may still be counting votes, but we may have a new president.
That's right. Right. We'll see where the chips land. It's going to be fun. Right. So, all right, everyone. Well, we'll see you next week on our next Friday 15.